Hi guys, ZenlessZoneZero has released one of the most game-changing releases or additions to the game in the form of uncapping weekly materials. Now, what do I mean by this and more will be explained in a moment. Without further ado, let's get into it. First and foremost, I want to disclaimer that this next section will have a bit of spoilers, but not really. So if you haven't gotten through the story and you are trying to avoid all spoilers whatsoever, feel free to pause now and maybe revisit once you've completed the story. But otherwise, we need to talk about the insanity that is the new weekly material uncapping. Now, formally, if you aren't familiar with the weekly materials, this is how you unlock some of your most impactful skills. For someone like Caesar, it's increasing the size of her barrier while also giving her attack increases. If you're talking about a character like Ellen, it gives her crit rate while also giving her increased crit damage on some of her skills. The list goes on, and even for characters like Jane, who really appreciate the increase in crit rate, assuming you don't already cap out on anomaly proficiency. These are absolutely fantastic additions, but for a long time, there has been one major issue that has plagued the game, which is how the heck are you supposed to get any of these weekly materials when you were locked behind 3 total clears per week? Well, Hoyoverse heard your prayers, and mine of course too, and they just removed this entirely. Now what you have access to is being able to overfill and bypass the weekly rewards that you would otherwise be limited to. But now what you can do is you can refresh and bypass the weekly reward limit and instead spend 60 battery costs in order to get these weekly materials. This is game changing for almost any gacha game or any concept of game that I've ever seen. They finally broke what it means to be a weekly or daily material. Now, for certain fights or certain content, there are things that are limited, like, of course, how many weekly Shiyu clears you can get, or the rewards from Shiyu, rather. Or, in terms of the Inferno Reap or other things like that, there are events that are one-time rewards only, or are restricted to waiting for refreshes. In that sense, this is a one-of-a-kind opportunity where now, because things like the finale dance shoes or whatever weekly materials you have are uncapped, guys, we can now unlock or fully upgrade the potential of our characters. Now you don't have to wait upwards of what? I think it's like 9 or so weeks, or maybe even 8 to 9 weeks, 6 to whatever, several weeks at this point in order to actually be able to clear content, in order for you to actually be able to unlock the full potential of your character. Now you can do it basically as soon as you have the energy to consume it. If you're someone that is refreshing, or if you're using the batteries to use energy, or you've been saving batteries in general, now's the time for you to actually gain the most out of your core skill enhancement. Now, with that, this next section I'm going to be talking about will deal with the next boss. So this is your final spoiler and disclaimer before getting into it, because I do want to talk about the new boss and give you a bit of a brief overview plus guide on how to actually beat this boss. Right now, the boss is called Corrupted Overlord Pompey, and if you're someone that wants to build Caesar, this is the weekly material that you have to farm out and actually clear. If you also haven't already seen it, there is a function or a button / switch here called Pursuit to the Depths, and this is what you have to flick on if you want to be able to farm out this activity without only using 3 weekly rewards. Now, of course, after this is completely done and once you have access to actually clearing this content, one of the main things that you'll see about Overlord Pompey, plain and simple, is the fact that he has 2 forms. Most of the bosses in the Notorious Hunt either have a second form or a second boss that you have to deal with in order to compensate, but let's go over some of the boss's functionality. First and foremost, we have the fact that he is weak to fire, and that's kind of funny given lore reasons. And again, if you haven't already seen the story of the ZenlessZoneZero 1.2 update, it's kind of poetic because he's weak to fire, and the whole thing is that he gets sent into the fire, or, you know, he has to basically deal with whatever. Point is, he's weak to fire, and if you want to use someone like Lucy, if you want to use someone like Soldier 11, or some variation of Cope Kaleda Fire DPS, whatever you want to use, this is going to be what definitely burns him or deals the most damage to him. However, keep in mind as well that characters like Jane do so much damage even without needing to consider his element weakness, that it's probably easier or better in most cases to just pick a character that has a defensive assist and also deals a decent amount of damage. I will say that you definitely want to avoid electric, of course, because it's his resistance, but that does also kind of put a hamper on players that want to play Juyuan or play with certain compositions that have Qingyi alongside them with their main stun agent. But now, that being said, the 3 team compositions that I definitely recommend if you haven't tried already is, first off, Jane, Seth, Caesar, because this is easy, fantastic, and very casual to play. Jane, Seth, Lucy, if for whatever reason you didn't pull for Caesar, who, again, honestly, I'd kind of recommend you pull for her just because of how crazy she is. Ellen, Lyko, and Sokaku, if you're someone that decided to pull for Ellen on the 1.0 banner and are now just waiting to, I guess, farm out for Caesar now. And the final team that I recommend is Soldier, Coleta, Lucy. Now, of course, the element from this makes it one of the premier teams to use if you are someone that has Soldier 11, Coleta, and Lucy built already. But a standout from all these teams is that they have plenty of defensive assists, they daze very easily, and ultimately, guys, it's a notorious hunt. Though a little bit difficult at times, most of the time, as soon as you're at the point where you're level 60 and are able to actually deal damage to the boss, this notorious boss is just going to get beat up and die anyways. Now, of course, there also are Vizonia that spawn, and that includes Ignite, Duel, and Assist, in order to assist you with clearing this boss. But truth be told, outside of a few minor mechanics from the boss, this guy's pretty much a cakewalk. Now, there are a couple things to take note of here when it comes to the boss, and this includes his two main forms. The first phase, of course, is a more biker heavy riding motorcycle kind of gameplay phase, and this is where you mostly bash at him, and for the most part he has a few cronies that spawn right before he enters onto his bike, but this should be very simple and is mostly just a beatdown fest. However, once you enter into a second phase, you do have to spend way more time considering your defensive assists or tracking where the boss is, and there are a few attacks that feel a little bit difficult at times for you to actually evade outside of just, of course, just doing a dodge. I was trying to do or perform a few defensive assists in these cases, but even with my Caesar shield and trying to avoid some of the hits through preemptively dodging, I ended up getting hit, which is probably just a skill issue. However, rolling everything back, I do want to talk about, of course, while the boss and the boss itself is very easy, don't mistake this for the main point that I was trying to get across in this video, which is, though this boss is very easy, and I included a small guide for how to beat that character, what's most important here is ultimately the reward, because, and I actually kind of griefed because I wasn't intending on beating the boss, but I accidentally ended up doing it anyways. I ended up getting an extra resource for my core skill, of which I was able to fully max out my Caesar, or I would have been able to use to max out my Caesar. My Caesar right now, as you can see, is 14,000 HP, has 174 impact, and is core skill F without me having pre-farmed that all for her. So, yeah, anyways, guys, that's going to be it for this video. Honestly, I'm actually really happy with 1.2 so far. I hope you guys were able to, or are able to, take advantage of this new weekly material change. The boss is pretty fun too. I don't think he's that difficult to fight against. I would definitely recommend you guys not try to take any ranged characters into him, unless if you're very confident in how quickly you can stun. But as always, that's just a notorious hunt, and in general, it shouldn't be too difficult to actually beat up this boss. Anyways, though, guys, that's going to be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you enjoyed today's content, make sure to like, comment, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe. That's going to be it for me today, though. I'll see you guys on the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good night.